Super Smash Bros. 4 was one of my most anticipated releases of 2014, a new installment featuring not just a Wii U and 3DS version, but knowing the director Masahiro Sakurai, a whole bunch of new content to look forward to. After being announced nearly 6 years after Brawl, what were we most excited about? Obviously there were features like handheld to console connectivity, some new single-player modes to play around with. That was fine and all, but what made getting a new Smash game so exhilarating to anticipate were the newcomers. Smash 4's newcomers were all incredible additions to an already large cast of characters. There wasn't one character that I wasn't excited to play as, or at least was curious to play as once they got announced. Seeing some of my predictions come true made it all the more exciting, and it was even neat to see characters from games I never even discovered, like Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles. By the time the game was about to come out, we were introduced to a roster of nearly 49 characters, which by itself was larger than anything Brawl had to offer. But then, it happened. There were more characters about to be released. After the great success of Mario Kart 8 getting downloadable content, Super Smash Bros. Was finally getting the same treatment. It was like just when you thought it was all over, suddenly wham Mewtwo, wham Lucas! This roster wasn't finished yet, and the hype train was back. As of this video, we were given 7 DLC characters to play as, making Smash's already giant cast become a staggering 56-man roster. I can't even count that with my fingers, that's a really big number of characters for a fighting game. Though nothing I'm not really surprised of, considering the magnitude of Smash itself. So in order to commemorate the roster finally being complete, I thought I'd take the time to look a bit deeper into these new fighters being offered. Now, keep in mind that these are all just my thoughts, impressions, and opinions on the characters themselves. When it comes to any kind of technical aspect, what I discuss won't exactly be concrete, so please take my word with a grain of salt. Not that kind of salt. So are these characters worth being downloadable content, or were they just an afterthought that just should have been smushed into the roster? Let's take a look and find out. First up we have Mewtwo! And man, I can't even begin to describe the reactions towards this guy being announced. Making a comeback as a returning fighter from Super Smash Bros. Melee, who was strangely absent during Brawl, Mewtwo was initially offered as a free download for people who bought both the 3DS and Wii U versions of Smash 4. You would have to register the games together in one Club Nintendo account in order to receive the codes. For the longest time, I never really got the appeal of Mewtwo's return. I mean, I get that he was a veteran fighter, but was he really that incredible? I mean, apparently it took a lot to get him unlocked in Melee, but still. Playing him now for the video, I can safely say that, yeah, he is kind of fun to play. Though if I had to nitpick on one minor thing, I'd have to say that his build is honestly pretty foreign to play as for me. What I mean by this is that Mewtwo's dimensions take up quite a bit of space, which would naturally be for heavier or bulkier characters like Bowser or Donkey Kong. Yet he still perpetually floats around and practically moves like a lightweight character, and it's honestly kind of disorienting. Like, I get that it's what makes him unique as a fighter, but often his larger build makes him really susceptible to a lot of easy hits, making him quite literally a floating punching bag. By the time I got used to this, I realized that he does make up for this trait through sheer overblown power alone. Whether he's manipulating his opponents through jabs and confusion, or teleporting and reappearing out of nowhere, to the amount of shadow balls up his sleeves, Mewtwo really exemplifies the feeling of playing an ultimate life form. He reminds me a lot of playing as Seth in Street Fighter 4. A lot of his finishing attacks and specials really have that impact of sheer power that only can be perpetually plausible by a being quite like Mewtwo. Even his lightweight nature can help when it comes to being maneuverable and can help psych the opponent out in your movements, like when you push opponents away with the range of your tail. Smash has always been known for the mind games, and Mewtwo is no exception for that. A character I didn't really get at first, but soon understood very well why he made the comeback in the first place. Next up, we have Lucas! And yeah, this is also a great addition. Originally from the Mother series, who made his fighting debut in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Lucas is what I consider to be a clone done right. Now I know that the Smash Bros. Series has had a lot of controversy regarding the inclusion of clones, how they're no different from their original characters, or how they're pretty much occupying a space for original or newer characters that could have made the spot. You know, people these days can find a lot of little things to complain about. In my personal opinion, clones are never really much of an issue. I find them fun to play as most of the time, you know, as long as they're given functional differences and characteristics that set them apart from their original characters. Brawl did this the right way, having clones like Toon Link and Wolf that had similar moves and specials as their original counterparts, but had enough differences to justify being their own character. Though I will admit, as much as I love playing Lucina or Dr. Mario in Smash 4, I can't really say that much of their specials really deviate much from what any other original character can pull off. Lucas is far from that problem, since almost all of his moves act and behave differently from that of Ness's, which makes him a newer kind of character overall. He has a tether in the form of his snake, a side air that acts as an extremely satisfying spike, and probably the most powerful up smash out of all the characters. While his specials are very similar to Ness's PSI abilities, they do have some minute differences, like Lucas's PK Thunder lingering longer and can pass through enemies, and even his PK Fire can knock back enemies on impact. PK Freeze is also really fun to abuse, even though it doesn't have the same KO guarantee as Ness's PK Flash. Getting into Lucas, expecting to play move for move exactly like Ness will honestly get you a bit disappointed, but instead treat him like a character inspired by Ness that plays completely differently on his own, and you got yourself a clone that's definitely worth owning. I can even say the same for the next character we're gonna talk about, Roy from the Fire Emblem series, who originally made his debut in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Yeah, he plays somewhat similarly to Marth, who, essentially became the carbon copy template for any sword fighter, but I find myself getting a lot more responsiveness and joy out of playing Roy. I'm gonna assume it's the sheer kinetic strength of his attacks that really gives him that edge. For as strong as a character as Ike may be, he's certainly lacking in responsiveness and being quick overall. A lot of his attacks are either slow or require to build up enough potential energy to do a devastating attack. With Roy, you not only feel the strength, but also the speed of his attacks. It makes playing as him real easy to punish opponents with sweet spots, along with the edge of great mobility. As a matter of fact, he started becoming one of my favorites out of all the DLCs. He just really felt like a truly accomplished clone character. So in other words, the character that Roy came from was pretty great, but the Roy that we were given was even better. I perfectly set up this joke, didn't I? It's top notch. So that's all I have to say about the veteran fighters, good all around. So how about we get into what you all really came for, the newcomers. First up we have Ryu from the Street Fighter series, specifically the version of Ryu from Street Fighter 2. I was pretty curious how Ryu's inclusion could be any different from the standard fighters in Smash, since a lot of characters' physical moves are pretty much taking keys from the standard fighting style of Ryu in fighting games. So I was expecting some Hadoukens and expecting some Shoryukens, nothing more, nothing less, but what I wasn't expecting was controlling Ryu in Smash is barely like a Smash character, but actually a Street Fighter character. Not just the way he jumps or moves based on joystick movement, but also how he has different attacks depending on how hard you press the attack button. In a similar fashion to Street Fighter's light, medium, and hard attack layout, this can make doing combos with Ryu really intuitive, since he's not just limited to a standard jab combo. It's not just that either, but his special moves can be performed with not just the B button, but by inputting the traditional Street Fighter joystick combinations too. This means exactly what you think it means. Down quarter circle for Hadoukens and spinning kicks, and performing a Z motion to pull off a Shoryuken. The cool thing about these combinations is how they act as stronger attacks than normally pressing B. Performing the Shoryuken move even has the possibility of knocking out the opponent in one fell swoop, and it's pretty satisfying. I especially love using Ryu's focus attack in order to momentarily stun opponents and set them up for a devastating finishing move. Ryu is honestly one of the most exceptional Smash characters ever made because of how he barely plays like a Smash character, but instead focusing on the style of his original game and replicating the feeling in an entirely different environment. That's actually pretty impressive. You can really tell that he was one of the more technical characters to develop, and it really paid off in my opinion. Purchasing Ryu also comes with the Suzaku Castle stage from Street Fighter 2, a Japanese rooftop level with a gorgeous sunset sky and breakable signs. Up next we have Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. Yes, from the PlayStation game, Final Fantasy VII. I'd imagine his announcement really caught a lot of people off guard, and I was definitely one of those people. I mean, when was the last time you saw this guy's face on a Nintendo game? I mean, aside from Chain of Memories on Game Boy Advance, the Theorhythm games, and, the fact that Final Fantasy VII was originally in development as a Nintendo 64 game, he's mostly been known for his appearances on Sony consoles. Not much of a reputation on Nintendo is what I'm trying to get at. I guess since the announcement of the long-awaited Final Fantasy VII remake, they needed to find some way to promote the game, but Smash Bros of all places? Cloud is an incredibly broken but still awfully fun sword fighter to play as, matching his strength and speed with his special abilities. I'd like to imagine him as the version of Ike that isn't afraid to be swift or cunning to match his strength. Cloud has quite a bit of range with his attacks, especially due to the large area that his Buster Sword covers overall. And of course, he has his standard projectiles, a side special that locks opponents in, and a recovery that's great for vertical distance, but certainly not for reaching a gap. However, that all changes once you take into account his limit break ability. By charging up the limit meter through his down B, or gradually waiting for it to charge, Cloud can pull off stronger versions of his special moves. Like a projectile that does multiple hits and more knockback, or a side special that can potentially knock out opponents, or a recovery that's actually good. But that doesn't even compare to his charged down B special, the finishing touch, which pretty much acts as Little Mac's KO punch. So yeah, his attacks and specials are quite overpowered, but that's what makes him such a fun sword fighter to play as in the first place. Cloud also comes with the Midgar stage, a mechanical level with a view of the Shinra power plant that also features summons from Final Fantasy VII. Next we have Corin! Corin? Kamui? Yeah, okay, I'm willing to bet that if you haven't been following the release of Fire Emblem Fates, then chances are you had no clue who this character even was. And yeah, maybe her inclusion was solely for the purpose of advertising the new Fire Emblem game or to add more Fire Emblem characters into the roster, yada yada yada, but I'll say this right now. Corin is honestly really fun to play as. Completely ignore the impression that all Fire Emblem characters are the same sword fighters with small differences, because Corin, much like Robin, is unlike any of the others. She has a set of 2 weapons at her disposal, this chainsaw sword that can even attack during the charge up for a smash attack, and this incredibly versatile Dragon Fang. Its range alone is what really makes it fun to use. One of Corin's definitive specials is the Dragon Lunge. Pressing it once can act as a maneuverable short hop, but by pressing it again, you can unleash the Dragon Fang in the air and potentially spike the ground. This can allow you to perform quick side attacks to trick your enemies, on top of downright stabbing them in the ground. Her Dragon Fang can also shoot projectiles that stun on impact, on top of an attack where Corin's hand can bite the opponent. Oh yeah, did I mention that her Dragon Fang also has a sweet spot at the tip? Oh yeah, did I mention the fact that she's a freaking dragon? And yeah, did I mention that there's a male and female counterpart? I mean, I kinda like female Corin more, she's cuter. Out of all the characters I've experimented with, Corin feels the most unique. Her dragon abilities really make her stand out from the sea of sword fighters. She's easily become one of the biggest surprise newcomers to come into the roster. Well, second biggest surprise. December 15, day of the final Smash Bros. Presentation. Towards the end, the final fighter was about to be revealed, and I was expecting another Kid Icarus character after the whole Pit and Palutena exchange, when suddenly, in the midst of the moon itself, comes the one character I did not expect. Bayonetta was gonna be in Super Smash Bros. That was the biggest adrenaline rush I ever received in my entire life. To be honest, besides Wonder Red, Bayonetta was a character I was desperately hoping would get into Smash, since her latest entry being Wii U exclusive and all, so maybe this meant some partnership between Platinum and Nintendo? A lot of us thought it was too impossible for her to be in a game like Smash, but there she is, in the flesh, with both her Bayonetta 1 and 2 outfits. And my god, this fighter is the real deal. Much like Ryu, Bayonetta plays almost nothing like a regular Smash character, but more akin to how she played in her original games. If you've played any Bayonetta game, you know exactly what to expect. Fast combos and mobility, bullet climaxes that can occur at any point of her combo, Madama Butterfly summons for her smash attacks, and of course Witch Time as her counter, making it the most broken counter of all time. It's amazing! Playing as Bayonetta is almost exactly like the same mentality I get of playing just about any character action game. As long as you know how to link attacks together while also being quick when it comes to dodging, you can perform some pretty amazing feats. I've never played a character more fun to combo with than Bayonetta. It's literally the easiest thing in the world once you get the hang of it. I love her extended taunt, I love the Umbra Clock Tower stage that comes with her straight from the opening of Bayonetta 1, I love the fact that the Bayonetta series will get more recognition because of her inclusion in Smash. I love just about everything about this character. And apparently I'm not alone, since she was also the fan favorite of a lot of others too. Out of all the entries for the Smash Ballot, a worldwide event where fans could choose which character they wanted to be in Smash the most, she was apparently the #1 pick for the European Smash Ballot, and one of the top 5 picks for North American Smash Ballots too. That's pretty crazy that out of all characters, she was the one that was the most plausible. Now many people, and I mean many people, can argue that there were a lot of other characters who deserve the spot. I know for a fact that there were a lot of people raving for indie mascots like Shovel Knight or Shantae to make the spot. Even I wanted characters like Wonder Red to make the Smash ballot just so Nintendo could promote games that deserve a lot more recognition. But I think a complete roster of 56 characters hits the mark just fine. And besides, Smash 4's downloadable fighters are all excellently made. They feel like fully complete characters with well-developed movesets that all rightfully deserve their spot. Obviously there were some I like better than others, but overall I'd say that each of them individually are worth the purchase for the amount of hours that you're going to put into them. If you happen to be interested in any of the characters that I've just described, then I highly suggest you go out and try these characters out for yourself. They're just all too excellently made to not give them the benefit of the doubt. And with that, I guess that's the end of the Smash hype train. For now at least. I know for a fact that I forgot to mention things like the downloadable stages and some of the Mii outfits. Some of them do look actually pretty cool. Though personally, I just wanted to look at the last bit of featured content for Smash 4, since there doesn't seem to be any plans for new additional content or patches anytime soon. Bottom line, the anticipation and the overall delivery of Smash 4 was incredible. A true testimony to how to appease the gaming audience. I mean, yeah, some people may have been disappointed that characters that they really wanted weren't in the game, but I think it's worth noting this. It's impossible to cater a game to everyone. But the fact that Smash 4 actually tried is something I really commend.